Hey everybody, this is Aaron Murakami with A&P Electronic Media, and we're here in Spokane, Washington at my shop with Eric Dollard. As many of you know, we had raised a little bit of funds to have his engine in his 1980 Toyota Corolla swapped out, and that's moving right along. We should hear back either today or tomorrow, and that part of the project should be done. Recently, at the conference, I just want to show you the cover to the presentation, which is called the Musical Seismograph. This is a presentation that I filmed down in Nevada a couple months ago. It was a few weeks before the conference, and it was going to be a separate release, and then Eric was going to come to the conference and do a completely different presentation, and due to health issues he was unable to make it. But this presentation just turned out to be a 4-hour presentation, exactly as scheduled, so we went ahead and played that as a pre-recorded demonstration. And it's not just about earthquake detection. Eric goes into quite a bit about an interesting kind of amplifier circuit, which might quite possibly be the highest fidelity audio amplifier design ever shown or ever created. And this is used to amplify signals so small that most people would have a hard time even detecting them. And we even take a journey into the mine, a couple hundred feet into a middle of a mountain where there's some seismic detectors, and so that's available at emediapress.com/Eric Dollard/musical seismograph. And if you go to emediapress.com, you can find references to all that. So what we're going to do today for this video is on Eric's Facebook page, which is basically facebook.com/Eric P. Dollard. I had mentioned in here that Eric is up here, and so if anybody has questions, go ahead and post them. This was posted just day before yesterday. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and read through these, and then Eric's going to comment, and this will be up on YouTube. So we'll get started here. Okay, so let's see here. Okay, so somebody asks, Asma Lafi, I would like to know more about how the sun works as a transition from the light from other dimensions, and what could these dimensions be? Thanks for opening our eyes on the truth.
Well, that's a chunk to answer, being that there is nothing really known. But one thing is for certain, the sun is not a big nuclear bomb burning in the sky. Just like it's not a lump of coal burning in the sky, nor is it a Greek god dragging a ball of fire across the sky. No one really knows what the sun is. It's unknowable. But it is producing an output, and that output has to come from somewhere. So the sun basically, I gave a rather extensive talk on this in the front seat of my car at some point in Lone Pine when I was a little more on top of it. But it's kind of a transformer from, for the lack of a better term, one dimension to another. So it's tapping a, I don't know how you could use the term counter space, I suppose, rather loosely. And then that comes out as what the physicists tell us is light and radiation, all that, but that's all suspect too, because the sun can't be seen in outer space, nor can the stars. So then we have the question of what is the light? And the whole thing is kind of really a mystery. So I don't think I can really provide a satisfying answer to anybody on that question.
Now, when you mentioned talking in the front seat of your car, in Facebook here, somebody had posted a YouTube video where you're in the front there. This is several years, maybe, I don't know, 4 years back, 5 years back or something.
Yeah.
The sun is not what we have been told. In that video, is that the one you're referencing to? That
yeah,
you talked about it?
Somebody had taken a video of me, and what people that write letters to me know as Rat Camp Alpha, or Rat Hole Alpha, I should say, which I think is, the pictures are somewhere buried in the website. And I think, God, I must have talked about my experiences with the study of the sun at Sonoma State University with the RCA receiving equipment. And I would say it would be best to go to that video when my mind was a little more on top of the subject. Right now I'm not really in very good shape, so it's kind of hard for me just to go off on an extensive detailed lecture on the subject.
So if anybody's watching this and you want to see that video, just go to facebook.com/Eric P. Dollard. And I posted this on his page on August 26th, 3:25 p.m. So just scroll down and you'll see that. Okay, let's see. Hans Bush. Please convey this message to him. Thanks for sharing such amazing and valuable knowledge of electricity, the history of electrical discoveries, and your own findings. I've been a fan of yours for a long time and find myself at work listening and re-listening to your talks in an attempt to better grasp the material and hope to apply it in my own experiments. The only question I have at this time is if you are still active on the ham bands, and if so, where do you typically operate and when? I would love to QSO, especially in CW mode if possible. My call sign is initials such and such, named after the J.S. Bach, W1JSB. Thanks for sharing the connection between Bach and Tesla, 73.
Well, it doesn't look like I'm going to be back on the ham band, so when Landers was bulldozed, I have no more facilities, and I can't seem to find an operating PRC-47 anymore, so I think my days on ham radio are over.
Okay, from Eric Weinert, can you ask him about electric biology and the links to electricity and life? He touched on it briefly with the relationship of the golden ratio and how electric arcs form lifelike structures when burned onto surfaces. He also recently mentioned some relationship to the infrared bandwidth and biological connections. Thank you.
Well, I got into that pretty extensively in the ether presentation.
That's the power of ether.
Ether is related to music and electricity. It's all this is derived from the ether. So electricity is one aspect, life is another. Everybody, back in the days when people had rational minds and weren't digitized, it was pretty well understood that life and electricity had a very kindred relationship. And then after the fall of Wardenclyffe, the electrotherapy industry, for the lack of a better term, flourished with Tesla's discoveries, and Tesla could have very well been a major player in that as a source of income and advice to the people, probably particularly the Fisher Company that made a lot of equipment.
Okay, then just a comment from Franco Bruno Cordelletti. Many thanks to Eric. By your brilliant work, the re-rise of the electric science will be forged with your name and your astounding knowledge. I hope all good light and health to you. Uno Ness. I've been curious why audio industry has chosen 400 Hertz for audio test frequency, and the Navy also chooses 400 Hertz frequency to run their AC systems. What's the 400 Hertz? Why does the Navy know about it? I know the higher frequency is more efficient, but why not 500 then? And wouldn't a 440 Hertz or 432 Hertz system be a better idea?
Well, the 400 cycles per second is the reasoning behind that is as the frequency goes up, the amount of iron and copper in the machinery becomes a lot smaller and lightweight. So the application was originally for aircraft, and then as far as ground equipment goes, it results in a more compact generating system and the transformers. Like my PRC-47 is designed to operate on 110 volts, but at 400 cycles. So that way the power supply is very small and compact, because somebody has to schlep that thing on their back through the jungle while flying hot lead is grazing their head. So you don't want to be struggling with a lot of weight. So the radars of World War II typically operated on 1200 cycles or 800 cycles per second to get the transformers and networks down even smaller. 400 rather than some other number like 432 or whatever is, it just makes sense to use something that's more of a power of 10 than to get into any kind of complicated frequency. It just makes it harder to read the switchboard instruments to look at 432 rather than 400, and the dial would be all weird, and so that's basically why 400 cycles came about. There's nothing really magical about it. As far as 440 cycles for the musical note of A goes, it seems like that's some kind of very misguided abomination, such as increasing the ring frequency of the telephone from 20 to 30 cycles. And probably one of the most blatant acts of stupidity in human history was choosing 50 cycles for power frequency, which makes everything 6/5 heavier, makes the EMF 5/6 slower, and makes the lights flicker more. And these things all go down in the annals of human stupidity, which are filling rapidly this day and age.
Now, you commented on the 440 hertz, but what about the 432?
432, I don't know exactly how that came about, but my notion, of course, is the 426 and 2/3 is really the proper frequency because it's Pythagorean.
And say that frequency again?
For 426 and 2/3, the musical note of C has to be some power of 256 cycles per second. 256 is a Pythagorean number. And then in the musical seismograph, if I get into the details of how the musical scale is derived out of all the harmonics of C. And I'd be interested in knowing why 432 was established. When you go back to the days of Bach and Handel, everybody seemed to have their own frequency standard and their own periodicity standards. It never was really equal temperament, even though it was kind of presented that way, or is presented that way now. And then in choral works or performances in music which are not digitized by a keyboard, the reference frequency actually wanders around during the performance, and there is no definite reference frequency.
Yeah, the only thing I've seen on the 432 is that, of course, it's speculation. I haven't seen any evidence of it. Is that Goebbels, Hitler's propaganda minister, had pushed for that.
That was the 440.
440
yeah.
as a standard to dumb people down instead of letting music enlighten and raise people's consciousness.
Well, I had an interesting experience when we were out working on some phone lines out in the desert. Some tourists had come by. Wondering where some species of fish that everybody wants to gork at in some pond around there. So there was a guy, and his girlfriend was a Native American, a real Native American. In other words, she still practiced the cultural aspects of being a Native American, and we got into long while Justin was up on the pole, so he couldn't really contribute too much to the conversation, but we were talking, and then I was describing why we were using these wires and the Earth's frequencies, and then his girlfriend really picked up on the Earth's frequencies. And there's something about this 426 and 2/3 in her mind relating to her cultural disposition that maybe the decimal point has to be moved, but somehow that represents the natural frequency of the Earth. So I had not gotten back to those people. I got the guy's card to pursue this any further because, as everybody knows, I've been having a rather difficult time, so I'm kind of in a deadened mode right now with regard to all this stuff and not really too enthused. But eventually I will have to follow up on it because this directly relates to the telluric research.
Okay, from Luke Byrne. Beyond the founders of modern electrical theory and the others that Eric had pointed us to in the content that is out there, are there any specific works that help create and foster a holistic and metaphysical understanding of these phenomenon you have come across? Very disappointed to have missed the conference, but it is a large distance from Australia. Tell him thanks for his work, and despite all the noise of the modern world, he has inspired plenty of people to better understand the world and themselves. Cheers, Luke.
Well, again, that's kind of a tough question to answer. You know, I arrived at most of this stuff either experimentally or analytically, and then, my extensive contact with nature, and just happened to be at the right place at the right time to pick up on this stuff from the old timers. Encountering the works of Steinmetz was very helpful because it took the oppression of academia off the understanding of electricity and dumped it in the garbage where it belonged, including Maxwell's equations, and gave me the ability to really progress in my study of electricity through the use of algebra. But this is not something for the beginner, so I can't really, suggest any magic pill or what have you to gain this understanding. You have to remember that I started this stuff almost in infancy from a family that this had gone on in 2 generations beforehand, so I can't really direct anybody where to begin.
Okay. Let's see, this is a comment in either Portuguese or something. Okay, I have a translation. This is from Vinicius Cerqueira. Well, I didn't pronounce that right. If you can explain with your words on video what actually is energy in such a way that ignorant people, that if I'm ignorant of electricity and I can understand it. If possible, translate to Portuguese, because in Brazil many people who like the Lord and His ideas, but few who understand English, then make it difficult. Okay, so he's just going to have to get somebody who speaks English to watch it on the video. But basically, in your words, define energy.
Well, yeah.
The rate at which electricity
energy, dimensionally and mathematically, is defined at the rate at which electricity is produced or consumed. And electricity is defined as the product of magnetic induction, in other words, how many lines of magnetic force, and dielectric induction, in other words, how many lines of dielectric force, and their union is basically can be referenced to the work of Max Planck. So, being that there's the factor of time involved, is this union of magnetism and dielectricity, which in Steinmetz's understanding is called electricity, in conflict with the way the physics look at it. They call the dielectric field electricity, but with the advent of the work of Tesla and Edison, electricity took on a new meaning, and the physicists and the academias were all left far, far behind. And electricity has to consist of both dielectricity and magnetism. And then the rate at which that is used up is energy, and the rate at which energy is used up is power. And according to Steinmetz, there's only 2 real factors that exist in the world of electrical engineering, and the rest he considered mathematical fictions. One is the union that I talked about, which I refer to as the Planck in honor of Max Planck. And its dimensions is power multiplied by time squared. And then Steinmetz regarded electric power as the fundamental unit of electrical engineering, and then the potentials and EMFs and currents and energies and all these type of things he regarded as mathematical fictions, and I basically have adopted that policy and found it to be very fruitful in my understanding and research into electricity.
Okay, from John C. Wise. I think you've been in contact by
Oh yeah,
email.
I get letters from him in the mail.
Okay, so tell our friend Eric Dollard he's one of the few electronic geniuses left in the country, and tell Eric that he has helped many people to better understand the qualities of electricity. May God bless. Violeta Arethusa Rocha. Could he make a more detailed video on the subject of music, like the one where he talked about Bach's work? That was fascinating. Well, there is the presentation, The Power of Ether as Related to Music and Electricity.
Yeah, that wasn't dedicated to Bach, but
it has quite a bit about music and harmonics.
Yeah, well, the things that Bach was, Bach very similar to Tesla in that he was riding the wave of several generations of philosophy and study and what have you, and was the pinnacle of all that. And then those concepts, after the death of Bach in 1750, were basically just buried. And then with the advent of Beethoven, that was the end of the party. Then music just became kind of a masturbation tool and had no contact with God, for the lack of a better term. And Tesla was the same situation. People regard Tesla as an isolated entity that had all these brilliant visions, and but that's not really the best way to look at it. Tesla was riding a wave of almost 200 years of philosophy and science and analysis of electricity and the ether and what have you, and he was not isolated physically either. He was in very close contact with many of the prominent figures of his day, particularly one of the most influential and prominent would be Crookes, the man that invented the vacuum tube, played a big part in Tesla's understanding. And in that sense, Bach and Tesla are an equivalency, and then with regard to Tesla and the demise of his and his contemporaries' outlook, it was the same thing after the Wardenclyffe tragedy. That understanding was basically pushed down, and then Einstein takes the place of Beethoven, and with the advent of the theories of Einstein, is all possible understanding of electricity was basically eliminated and persists to this day, and it's actually worse to this day.
If there was one book or video on the subject that you could recommend to somebody to look deeper into it, what would it be?
With regard to?
The music and Bach and a lot of that.
Well, I mean, they were getting into the same situation again. You know, these aren't things that you just pick some little book off the shelf and then all of a sudden you know what's going on. There really isn't anything presented on these subjects other that's of any use, particularly with regard to Tesla. There's so much crap with Tesla's name on it that it's thoroughly disgusting and causes me to bare my fangs and exhibit coyote behavior. So I don't know where to begin or where to suggest that anybody begin. You know, I've probably choked down several thousand pages on the subject. Jerry Vassilatos, in his book Secrets of Cold War Technology, gives a rather inspirational portrayal of Tesla. And then, of course, J.J. O'Neill's Prodigal Genius was the one that got me started on all this. I think possibly the best biography on Bach is the one that's about 1,800 pages long by Albert Schweitzer, who was a very famous man in his time. I would recommend to understand the nature of Bach's music and his personality and the time that he lived in, Albert Schweitzer's book.
Okay. Let's see, this is from Alun Owens. My best wishes to Eric. My question to him is the following. How difficult is it to recreate Nikola Tesla's Wardenclyffe device in order to bring a usable electricity from the Earth itself?
I don't really think it's too good of an idea with the gluttony that exists on the Earth today to start pumping the human desire for energy through the interior of the Earth, unless you wanted to bring all the faults and volcanoes and everything to life. In Tesla's time, you know, the electrical load was a very small 100 candle power, or no, 10 candle power, I forget what it was. It was about 30, 40 watt incandescent bulb, and maybe a few small motors. So we don't live in the horse and carriage days anymore. We live in the era of the six-wheel beef monster truck, which is empty as the head of its owner, and it's just simply not feasible to start jamming that through the Earth. Basically, energy is a bad idea because we utilize the thermodynamic technology. The more energy that's available, the more it will heat up the planet, and there's really there's no way out on that. For me, my interest in Wardenclyffe is rather narrow. J.P. Morgan gave Nikola Tesla a lot of money to build this thing to send radio telegraph signals from there to England, and instead Tesla just jerked around and did lots of experiments, and it didn't happen. It was totally technically feasible with where Tesla was at that time to do that. So basically somebody needs to take care of that debt and make that communication system work. And that would vindicate the theories of Nikola Tesla and take the Maxwell-Einstein concept of all this stuff and just finally bury it forever. And then it would be quite possible the interest in this particular type of communications, it's not wideband, it's not going to serve the bandwidth gluttony of humanity that, you know, that wants to dump the public library into their house in 15 or 20 minutes. It won't work for that. It has no application in today's culture, if you could call it that, or lack of culture. It would be mostly useful for some type of military application where you would have a communication system that would still function in the advent of a EMP free-for-all, which is imminent. And the other application is to knock some sense in the heads of some of the people, like in NASA, let's say, to come up with a way to communicate with their deep space objects without suffering from the attenuation and delay that's attendant to the Maxwellian concept of transmission. And then, of course, whatever philosophical or being that any kind of technology always affects people's minds and behavior, that would cause some kind of change in what's going on.
Would you say for a beginner to understand some of the Wardenclyffe type of technology that maybe Crystal Radio Initiative is a good primer for?
Yeah, the Crystal Radio Initiative is the hobbyist version of Wardenclyffe. Now, let me remind people that Wardenclyffe is an enigma, and we don't really know what's going on inside, or would have gone on inside, and the people that claim to know are being they're deluding people to what really was going on because they don't know and they can't know, And then you have the Tom Bearden crowd, which is disinformation provided by the military to keep people away from getting things that might be disruptive or destructive to other countries, or cause a situation that could lead to damage to our country. So there's all these complexities involved, but the Crystal Radio Initiative has a very simple aim, and that is to rob power from the local AM radio station and provide some kind of usable output. And nobody can blame you for it, because Einstein says it's impossible.
And that's at crystalradioinitiative.com. And then somebody who's been following Eric's work for a long time, Simon Davies, also known as DR Green, he has a website called teslascientific.com, and you can purchase a spreadsheet, which is kind of like a calculator for that project, where you can, put in the frequency of whatever radio station, and it kicks out all the specs for the coils.
What he has done is he's taken the Colorado Springs unit, which I presented fairly detailed mathematical analysis of in the presentation I gave on the extraluminal, I forget the exact title.
Extraluminal transmission systems of Tesla and Alexanderson.
Yeah. So, unfortunately, it took about 3.5 hours to lay the theoretical basis for it, just so for the last half hour of getting into the actual details, but unfortunately, that's the way it usually works out. So what he has done is he's created a scaling factor with the number of turns and diameter and what have you to make smaller models of that, something which I'm considering for an experiment, possibly, if I get around to it. I don't know. Like I say, I'm kind of in a demoralized state on all this stuff and don't really have much interest in it anymore. But other people can build that, and then you got to watch out, because you're transmitting.
Yeah, so between crystalradioinitiative.com and then Simon Davies, teslascientific.com, that's about as easy as it's ever going to be for somebody to go in and start it.
Yeah, I mean, in the Crystal Radio thing, I make it, anybody that has any kind of functional ability technically should be able to put that together without any problem at all. The complication is getting the necessary ground system. So Wardenclyffe, many people might not know, but Wardenclyffe has roots that go down into the earth that are actually more extensive than the tower itself to get the necessary zero impedance ground connection into the earth. I think basically the ground system probably took the bulk of Tesla's rather meager funding for that project to construct. Yes, the ground system still exists today, but the usual hysterical society realities that take over, along with their academia whores, have precluded any possibility of connecting to it. That's their job. I've learned recently that the Nikola Tesla Museum in the Eastern Bloc has issued another volume of the same genre as the one that came out in 1956, called Notes, Lectures, and Patents of Nikola Tesla, or some maybe also other combination of those words, I forget. That was the one in which I got most of the necessary information to duplicate Tesla's work. So now they have a new volume out, which I received a phone call from a guy that I write back and forth to, who was there and described to me some of the stuff he found, and he said there's a lot of technical information relating to the Wardenclyffe project, but they want $1,000 for the book, so I'll never see it.
Okay. Let's see, Tiara Thomas. All right, I used to be a science geek. I love to gain knowledge. Can you tell me what you all are talking about? Hip me to the knowledge. So Tiara, you can go to ericpdollar.com. P is stands for Paul, Eric's middle initial, ericpdollar.com. There's a free videos link there, and you can watch, I don't know, there's maybe 5 or 6 videos. Some of them are 3-4 hours long, a couple shorter ones. They are fairly technical, but there is a lot of history in there that you can understand even if you don't have a technical background. And it's about the electrical sciences, and probably the simplest book maybe that you could read is called Lone Pine Writings. If you go to lonepinewritings.com, or if you go to Amazon and you search for Lone Pine Writings, you can get the paperback, and that's kind of maybe one of the bare basic books that kind of lays out the basic.
Well, that lays out the mathematics. That's not really something for the beginner, but it's for somebody. It's actually, the Lone Pines writing is actually more of an algebra book than an electrical book, but algebra is basically the only way to describe this kind of stuff. So it's again, it's the same situation as you can't get into something like this just off of a zero level, because I've been doing this stuff for let's see, 59 years. So I can't just it's just not an on-off situation. I'm at a loss of where to tell people to start.
So I guess just go to ericpdollar.com, watch those free videos like the history and theory of electricity, and because a lot of that is, even though there's technical information in there, there's a lot of history that pretty much anybody can at least listen to.
Yeah, that's what it was intended to be, was to, and the same thing with the extraluminal presentation was to, kind of focus on all the various individuals that contributed, back all the way back to Galvani and Michael Faraday, and 10,000-15,000 pages later, you might get a good idea of exactly what's going on, but it's not an instant gratification type situation. This stuff is a lifelong journey.
And that presentation is at extraluminaltransmission.com. Okay, let's see. We have Antoinette Stones. Can the sun throw off its corona and radiate as a black sun? Also, would it be hotter? The sun is made of some kind of iron ferrous?
Well, it has an iron component. If the sun can't be seen in outer space, then I suppose you could call it a black sun. And what's underneath the photosphere appears to be a hollow sun, and it's dark from the imagery that is available that I studied when I was at Sonoma State University. Is you can see that the sun has a surface of these little vescules, and then it's dark in between. So I would imagine that the inside of the sun, there's a complete absence of anything that could even be remotely called light.
Okay, from Randy Rogiglio, what's Eric's guesstimate on how many years it will be before everyone on Earth has free energy?
No, I can't really say anything on that. Free energy is basically just go walk outside and stand in the sun. The best free energy is solar panels, and if I was the Ayatollah, solar panels would be demanded on the roof of every structure built in the world, and that would provide most of the necessary electricity. It makes no sense to be driving around in an empty 6-wheel pickup truck, and to make that happen for free would just give us a 12-wheel pickup truck, and then no one would be able to drive on the roads because their fat thighs would all be jamming against each other.
Okay, so from Christian Kirkovic, Hi Eric, hope you're doing well. Just wanted to wish you all the best. From Cyan Curran. Also ask Eric if you'd be so kind if he has ever been to Ireland
Well,
and if he's ready to cross the ocean.
I basically have ancestry in Ireland, from what I understand. There's still a lot of Dollards around there. The Dollard family is a breeding operation for the Catholic Church. And I guess that's still alive and well in Ireland, from what I was told. And if I go across the ocean, it's going to be the other direction, deep into the jungles of Polynesia.
From Williams F. Bellens, the earth is flat? Question mark. And then a couple comments, and then Daryl Davies, what's his view on the flat earth movement? Rye Silva, I would like to know if Eric Dollard has ever heard of flat earth theory as I research on that subject. There's a good handful of questions regarding that, so it's...
That's got to be the most stupid thing I've ever heard in my life. It just demonstrates that people will believe anything. People have gotten to the state where if the television tells them that cat turds are candy, they'll eat them. So, as far as this flat earth thing goes, why is it that if I want to fly to the Philippines, that I have to go through Alaska first? Why is it that if I want to pick up a radio signal from Moscow, I have to point my antenna at the North Pole? Why is it that when an airplane leaves the West Coast and continues to fly, that it lands on the East Coast? Who in the hell in their right mind can believe in a flat earth?
Allison Douglas, please just let him know I pray for and think of him often. He is a true beautiful soul. James Smalley, where's camp for the winter? Let's go knock down some cell towers.
Yeah, well, I can't condone any terrorist activity, but Kim Il-suk's nuclear EMP will take care of all of them for us.
Cyan Curran again. Tell Eric, please, that it hasn't been in vain. There are very good people paying very close attention. They have the capacity to make the connection socially that he was not equipped to. We all have our strengths. His time is coming very quickly now. Let's see, just more free energy comment. Luis Mendez, can you make a device that will give free electricity to your house? I'd be interested in buying.
Yeah, everybody wants the free energy fuse box. There is no free energy.
Let's see, A.R. Buan, I am interested to know more of projects that can be applied in developing countries. Are there any you can think of, or?
Well, not really. What do they want to develop? More cell phone towers? More computers?
Hey, Gerard Harrington, so glad you're still with us, here with us, my friend. Let's see, Tony Mazzotti, do you support the 432 tuning? So we already covered that concept. William Main, does he believe that the moon causes solar eclipses, like the one that we just had on the 21st?
No, I don't think it's a matter of belief. I think it's a matter of fact.
Deborah Elliott, Eric, is the Earth a plane?
Well, we already got
Same
into that.
thing. Let's see. Tim Sexton, good luck and keep up the progress. Sengiz F or FA. Ask Eric if he wants to ask me a question. Comment. So I think that's pretty much all of it on
Okay.
on that. I posted this picture on Facebook.
Oh, the electric chair.
Better view of that right there. that right there where Eric is sitting between two antennas. And surprising the response that happened pretty instantaneously. Let's see. So a comment, let's see here. Nate Cox, would you ask Mr. Dollard if he would do a video on tuned transformers? It seems if you match the resonant frequency of your electric motor, it runs 2/3 more efficient? Question mark. This would also apply to matching the RF of an internal combustion engine to the exhaust. Anyway, you keep going, your work is so important. Any comment on that?
No, not really.
Tuned transformers, or
I'm kind of spent on making videos right now. I have to concentrate on the projects at hand.
the video that you saw which showed you that resonant transformer was misleading. Okay, he's commenting to somebody else.
Okay.
He showed amp consumption, not watts. Okay, let's see. Okay, somebody's recommending that he writes a letter to you. You can find his mailing address if you look. If you want to write Eric a letter, write it to Eric Dollard, General Delivery, Lone Pine, California. Is that 93545? 93545. And that address is at ericpdollard.com. In the right column, you'll see the Lone Pine address for corresponding with him. Let's see. Does a magnetic field exist the way we think? Gerard Morin explains how magnetism is really a form of resonance. Ken Wheeler also explains coherence of orbital oscillations as a part of the process. A tuning fork oscillation can generate electromagnetism. Just wrap a coil around the base, therefore anything is in oscillation. Do you have a simple explanation of how you view a magnetic field?
There's a polarization of the ether. There's a guy, what was a long time ago I read a book, Babbitt's Theory of Light and Color. If you can find the unsanitized version, it gets into the ether molecules and how they link themselves together to form lines of force in a rather non-mathematical way. It's kind of exotic, but I'd recommend people read that book to get an understanding of the contra-Einstein view of nature.
What was Babbitt's first name?
Not certain. It's been a long time, been 40 years since I read that book.
So
Babbitt's Theory of Light and Color. There's basically a debased version out. So it should be, the title should be pop up on there.
Okay, is it Principles of Light and Color?
Yeah.
Okay, so you can search for Edwin
Babbitt.
Yeah, Edwin D. Babbitt. Babbitt is Babbitt. And if you search Babbitt Theory, Light and Color in Google, you'll find, you can download it free in archive.org. I don't know what version, if it's the original or if it's been edited or what.
If it's original, it's going to be several hundred pages. And Borderland Sciences, back in the days,
300 pages.
When I was involved with that, reprinted that book. It was my understanding it got reprinted. It's a massive book.
Okay, so if you go to archive.org, archive.org is where you can find the Wayback Machine, and if you search for Principles of Light and Color, you can see the, it's just a little blurry right there, but in any case, this is a 300-page version, and you can, down at the bottom right, you can click on PDF and you can download the whole thing as a free PDF ebook.
Now, that the sanitized version is not going to have anything on the lines of force or ether molecules because the physicists have all that erased out. So I don't know how you're going to get the unedited volume, but it's got to be around somewhere. But
This is 1878.
yeah, that sounds about right. It looks like it has a lot of the stuff in there, so I don't know unless I look at
Yeah.
it. Maybe that is an unedited version.
Light and color. Looks like a pretty intensive book.
Oh, it is.
Sources of light, chromochemistry, chromotherapeutics, and light and forces. Okay. So anyway, that's where you all can find that book and download the PDF. Let's see. Okay, Nate Cox. Mr. Eric Dollard acknowledges everything is frequency. I believe already. I hope I'm corrected if I'm mistaken. There's a guy in Florida charging water like a battery with the frequency of pathogens and disrupting them in the human body through consumption of said water. Could be fairy wings and unicorns, or it could be a fact. Any comment on any of that kind of?
Well, I don't know. I mean, water is a very, very strange substance, and it can be polarized in quite a number of ways. And as far as the free energy thing goes, it looks like the non-energy based separation of the hydrogen and oxygen in the water is now a technical reality, and will probably be introduced into Europe for internal combustion engine use in generating stations here rather soon, from what I understand. So that will basically, there will be your free energy. Doesn't take any energy to pull them apart, and then it creates energy to put them back together again. That's been kind of the holy grail of a lot of people for a while, and it looks like, again, it's technical reality from people who are telling me that don't tend to make up fish stories, and I know it's technically possible just out of my own intuition, so I think we'll be seeing that pretty soon.
Okay, Matt Swan. I'd be willing to bet that the resonant frequency is set to that of body healing, so that when it passes through him from one coil to the other, talking about the photograph where you're in the between the antennas, that it would heal him in theory, basically using technology rather than in conjunction with meditation to heal oneself. However, I'd personally include body grounding if I was to experiment with this method. And then somebody comments it's a multi-wave oscillator. So how do you see the Lakovsky unit operating?
It's a displacement current device. You're sitting in a dielectric field which is being disrupted by the spark gap, and that dielectric shock waves are well, according to Lakovsky, the oscillations that they excite vitalize the cells in the body, which, increasing your vitality, then increases your resistance to disease. As far as the destruction of pathogens go, Lakovsky claims that some of his radio frequency research was eliminating cancer that had been inoculated into laboratory plants. But again, I think it's a dielectric process, dielectric shock waves. Other experimenters have determined that sitting just between two capacitor plates with a spark gap across them, or connected to the output of an amplified audio oscillator that brings the voltage up to about 10 kilovolts, is also very beneficial. So until there's more experimental results, when this stuff, particularly the Lakovsky unit now, which seems to be making a big comeback, which is going to stimulate a lot more experimenting, time will tell just exactly what the details are with this.
and that particular unit was built by Paul Babcock, and he gave a presentation on it called the Universal Medium, and you can find that at emediapress.com. And there's some engineers in Europe who found some original machines. They reverse engineered it, put out the plans. You can find the book online if you search hard enough. It's not for everybody because it's quite a task to build the antenna rings and all that kind of stuff, but the information is there, and we do know somebody that is moving towards manufacturing these things, and so that's all going to be available at some point. Luciano Mendonca. Mr. Dollard, I appreciate your work. It's extremely important that you transfer your knowledge through a simple and didactic approach so we can learn and evolve. The world needs your brain. Please don't forget this. Tip, create a small prototype for assembly and sell here. A Tesla Dollard kit or something. May the force be with you. Let's see. Steve John Cogdell. Mr. Dollard, could you explain this apparatus to us who are most curious and intrigued by this picture? So he just kind of went into that a little bit. Jason Verbelli comments, Lakovsky coils. Gene, yep, the MWO. Chris Diaz, I'm pretty sure those are actually two separate things. Yeah, so it is a Lakovsky. Those are the antenna rings you're seeing, but there are coils, like a Tesla coil, hooked to them. JK, love it. What power supply are you using? I want to build one and use it too. It's using a neon sine transformer powered by a Variac. That neon sine transformer, I think, is a 15,000 volt one. It's operating at about half that, depending on how high the Variac is turned up. You can find Paul Babcock's presentation called Universal Medium. You can search for that online, and he kind of goes into his build. But again, it's based on the book that the Europeans put out, where they reverse engineered one, and that has all the plans for it.
The one thing I want to point out is the so-called Tesla coil setup, and that is is unfortunately the wrong path that was chosen after the Wardenclyffe demise, and is not very effective as a Tesla transformer, but it does provide enough output to excite the proper field to sit in. But that particular part of the apparatus can be highly refined to increase the output by a couple of orders of magnitude just by configuring the circuitry in the way that Tesla said to do it, and not the common practice of a series spark gap and a primary winding and an electrostatic condenser. That is not the proper way to do it, but that's become the common way to do it. And so improvements are in the making in this situation, and then I guess as those improvements are made, then this material will be made public.
Okay, Bianca Jade Brown, the MWOs is her current area of investigation. Let's see, Brenda DePret, happy to see you in the MWO. Sorry to have missed you at the conference this year. Looking forward to meeting you in the future. Dan Schellenberger, Constantine Mile found pancake coils, make more scalar waves and more scalar magnetic waves. So it is no wonder Tesla likes sitting beside his and putting it to different frequencies.
There's no such thing as scalar waves. The whole vector scalar concept is some concoction, primitive mathematical concoction that the Europeans love to cling to. It really is totally misleading. In fact, E.T. Whittaker, in his book on the history of the theory of ether and electricity, claimed it was useless, and he was a very eminent mathematician. Needless to say, his book was not very well received by academia, who thought they'd finally buried the ether and the lines of force for good, and then he brought the whole thing back out again. So the philosophy of Steinmetz has to be invoked here, that all that European mathematical stuff is just a bunch of garbage, and there are no such thing as scalar waves. I don't know how many times I've said that.
Let's see, Zilpa Bat Sarah. So when does this become available to the general public? There are a couple companies that are making the MWOs based on that book, but they're wiring up the ground in a way that reduces the effectiveness of the machine. And so just join any of the Energy Times newsletters, like on emediapress.com, and you'll get a notification when the one like you see in the video or in that picture is available. Let's see, Antoinette Stones, of course we really want to know what's happening there. Okay, we already went over that. William Kane, God bless you, Eric Dollard. Dennis Arends, any alien messages yet? Eugene Brian Starvagi, what is this device? Okay, we went over that. Stephen Sanchez, what a great photo. Tesla is proud. Marcus Cockrell, so does it work? Let's see, Roy Sonnenberg, Eric in the footsteps of Nikola Tesla, legendary photo. And a lot of people just making comments. I think that pretty much wraps it up as far as comments on that photograph.
Okay.
So, again, Eric's website is ericpdollard.com. He's up here in Spokane for a couple more days. We're getting his engine swapped out at a shop a little bit outside of town here. And in the meantime, we're just working on some other miscellaneous stuff. A couple projects we'll go into later. Again, check out Eric's new presentation, the musical seismograph. It's at emediapress.com/Eric Dollard/musical seismograph. It is a 4-hour presentation, goes into a lot of material, and again, you're going to see a type of audio amplifier design that pretty much no human being has ever seen. Now, if you want to support Eric's work, there's an address in Davenport, California. You can mail a check or money order to. If you do want, and you can make that out to EPD Labs Incorporated. It is a 501c3, so it's a charitable nonprofit, and the donations are tax deductible. If the only method you want to make a donation is PayPal, there's a PayPal button on ericpdollard.com in the right column there. You'll see the PayPal donation link. Again, if you want to write to Eric, write to him at the Lone Pine address. And there's a free videos link on there, and you can see a lot of information on Eric's website going through there. Also, a lot more of the technical stuff that's been posted over the years. Hasn't been too active lately because Eric had some health challenges towards the end of last year, and so there hasn't been a lot going on. But at energeticforum.com, there's an Eric Dollard thread, and there's actually quite a bit of information in there. And there's 2 other threads going back, I don't know, 6 or 7 years or something. And if you pour through Energetic Forum, through all those Eric Dollard threads, there's a mountain of information in there, scanned papers with diagrams and schematics and all kinds of explanations of crystal radio stuff. A lot of the stuff in Lone Pine Writings was actually originally posted in there. And so anyway, when you see this video, please share it on Facebook, embed it on your websites and get the word out. And again, go to ericpdollard.com. Any final words, Eric? Or
No, I think that pretty much wraps it up.
And so, this Facebook page here, even though this is the so-called official Eric Dollard page, obviously he's sitting here with me, and but he doesn't have a computer, so he doesn't respond to Facebook directly. Anytime something's posted or I want to make an announcement or whatever, I'll post it in that forum, or announcements for live calls. So if you're on that Facebook page or on Energy Times, or you're a member of Energetic Forum, whenever there is time for us to do like a live call where you can call in with questions, we'll definitely announce those. And I guess we'll just wrap it up for now.
Yep.
Okay, well, thanks for watching, everybody.